Well, thank you so much for doing our Awardist podcast today. And I have to say, as a proud Italian American and someone who goes to the Trattoria every year on his birthday, I have to thank you for representing and doing such wonderful work in this film. Truly, it's such a great performance.
Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Joey. I know what you mean by that. Like, I think that there's sort of this unspoken thing between Italian Americans that we all sort of nod at each other and smile that I think we all feel connected to the old country.
We do, absolutely. I have been trying to go back. My father has pinpointed the town that we're from. He's planning a vacation. I'm like, I got to do it someday.
Oh, that's beautiful.
No, hopefully you got a nice Thanksgiving break because I know you've been so busy, and I hope you had some time to enjoy Gucci becoming the biggest drama at the box office in 2 years over the holiday. I mean, that is just incredible news to hear. And you've now proven twice in a row that you are a bankable actor who drives box office. And that feels so good to say to you. And you spoke a lot about how before A Star is Born, you sort of had to fight to be given a shot as an actor. So I'm wondering, how did eventually getting that Oscar attention and success, starting with A Star is Born, sort of change your career as an actress? Did you notice like a shift in how people treated you or what kind of parts you were offered after the Oscars?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for all the support of House of Gucci, and the love you're showing for the success we've had at the box office. I just have to say, I feel very honored to have worked with Ridley Scott, as well as our producer, his wife, Giannina Scott, and this entire cast was an absolute pleasure to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Such talented actors that I felt privileged every day to work with on set. And I put in the work and the time
Yeah.
because everybody else was uh, of a very high caliber, and it's what was required. What I would say is that Bradley Cooper really believed in me for the role of Allie Mae in A Star is Born. And that film, the way that he empowered me to take helm of that character, as well as take helm of the soundtrack. And work with him so closely on a movie about music and a movie about musicians. It really was the success of our artistic collaboration, I think, that landed me where I am now, which is I'm able to uh, read lots of scripts and talk to lots of different directors, and it's a true honor. And when I met with Ridley and we talked about Patrizia Reggiani or Patrizia Gucci
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, I asked him, I said, are you sure she ever really loved him? Because I didn't know a lot about her yet.
Yeah.
And he said, absolutely. And then as soon as he said that, I knew that there was a more interesting story to tell here than just the story of sex, scandal, greed, and a murder.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, watching your friendship with Bradley, I mean, I love that have so much admiration for him still. I mean, that connection through that Oscar season it was so beautiful. And I'm wondering if because of that mutual trust and respect that you built with him on your first lead film role, did you speak with him or consult his perspective at all before joining Gucci?
Absolutely. I've confided in Bradley for years, and I've always appreciated his support and his advice, his thoughts on my future endeavors. But also, I have to, say, Bobby Campbell, my manager,
Mm-hmm.
Brian Lord, my agent. And the belief of so many people in my life, this came to fruition. And I have to say, mostly it was Ridley and Giannina. When I read the script, I really fell in love with this idea that people didn't know the real story
Mm-hmm.
of what happened. And it was because I think the real Patrizia Gucci is trying to drive a narrative that glorifies her as this strong boss lady that took down the Gucci's, and that's not what I saw.
Yeah.
It's not what I read. It's not what my detective work and my investigative journalism brought to me. What I discovered was that this woman was at one point a young girl,
Hmm.
a young girl that fell in love. And after, systematically becoming a part of the family and a part of the business, she was also systematically disposed of, and it rendered her uh, insane. Now, I don't know that I agree with this. I mean, I certainly don't agree fully with this insanity plea, uh, but I do find it interesting the way that women can lose their way when it comes to the trauma of living within patriarchal systems.
Hmm.
And it was something I wanted to explore.
Well, I have noticed that throughout your career. I mean, I've been, a proud little monster since 2008. I have followed your work so closely, and I do notice that there is a recurring theme of women sort of reacting to that patriarchal oppression in, violent ways. I mean, you see the bad romance video, the guy video, paparazzi video, and now Gucci. I mean, why is that something that is so is that coincidence, or is that something that you do actively try to comment on, quite poignantly, if I do say so, in your work?
It's always been something that I think I've found fascinating. And it's something I was faced with my whole life as a young woman, and a young woman in what is very much a man's business. And the wall of men you have to climb over to get anywhere
Yeah.
was, uh, to say it was a catastrophe for me over and over is an understatement. Um, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, had this been a role about a cold woman that was born a killer, there's nothing interesting about that to me. And
Yeah.
it's also would not have been something I wanted to play. I'm not interested in glorifying a killer, a real true killer. Um, but I did find it interesting that this woman snapped, and that was what I believed about her, that she made a very big mistake, that she deeply regrets, that she lives today with deep regret, that all these men were fighting over Gucci, over power, over wealth, over privilege, and they did not have their eye on the true disaster, and that was her.
Hmm. No, I am, I, that darkness though, that, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh no, sorry, no, that wasn't me.
Okay. Well, I am, the darkness that is sort of at the root of her, though, that you do explore. I am very struck by how deeply you spoke about it impacting you and how much it sort of did push you deeper into the character. And I thought it was beautiful that you explored her and sort of got to know her through art. Like, I believe I read that you wrote a journal as her and that you took photographs of things that you thought that she would find beautiful. And I'm curious if, given the obvious connection, you tried to explore her through like songwriting as well. Like, did you write any music in character as Patrizia, whether intending to like release it or not?
No, I did not write any music as Patrizia, but I did take up photography, and I did write a quite extensive biography, or
Mm-hmm.
or I should say autobiography of her, because I wrote it as her. As a way to build a backstory for her, I worked with an amazing acting teacher, Susan Batson, on this. And then for my accent, I worked with Beatrice Palicia and Tim Monick. And Bea was with me every day on set, and I was in that accent for about 9.5 months.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I did live as her, and I remember this whole story as if I lived it, and I can still, in my heart, feel this the stress, the pain, the trauma, and the horror, and the absolute terror of being a woman that's lost her looks, who's aged, who's been disposed of by every member of the family, shamed by the family, left by her husband for a younger, more beautiful woman who this and her husband no longer wishes to be with her and her daughter. That for me to have experienced that, even as an immersive artistic experience, left an indelible uh, branding out on my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And I really know in my heart that it might be very difficult for people to understand why there's this for some audience members empathy, that you feel for her. And at the same time, I think because I had to love her to play her, I found the human, because I didn't want to play a caricature. I didn't want to play Patrizia Gucci's idea of what she is, meaning if she could create a movie about herself, what would it be? I wanted to play the real thing. So I approached it from the looking at the qualities of the human. What were her good qualities? I think she was strong. What were her bad qualities? I think she had no self-control.
Right. Well, how did you make sure that you, though?
And actually, I shouldn't say that. I do think she had some self-control. I think she had an ability to be stealthy in the way that she dealt with all these men. But I think ultimately, as she's like tried to push the boundaries of the family and overstep, that eventually, she was in uncharted territory, that no matter how strong she was, they were almost certainly going to push her down. And that is the patriarchy. That is the element that fascinated me, how she kept going. And it's ultimately in her refusal to stop going that he ends up dead.
And it's like that patriarchal control over her, when she feels she is so sort of intoxicated by that power that she does have from within that business, that it's like when she feels that control slipping away from her, that sort of brings her into the whole madness of the second half of the film. And
yes, but no, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to say this because you said you were talking about how urine is high in American, right? And I don't know if this resonates with you, but I feel a particular allegiance to my family.
Yes.
Do you feel that way?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean to say this as to say, I think Italians are very loyal people.
Yes.
And I think that loyalty above all things is something that is like quite paramount. And even when we are disloyal, it is something that is so reprehensible. And you notice this in the film, when the family is disloyal to each other, it's outrageous and it's reprehensible.
Yes.
And I just want to say that I think that her loss of power, or this power she thinks she has, I actually always believe that it was more that she truly believed she was pledging allegiance to the Guccis her whole life, that she was surviving this system that she was trying to actually make better, protect, give the energy of herself as a woman, all of her wisdom, all of her knowledge, all she had to offer. So what I believe she was holding on to was not the money and the power. It was this idea that she was honoring something that was part of who she was, meaning that she was now a Gucci. That was her last name.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I fully get that. And I didn't mean to suggest that I was disagreeing with you. I fully understand what you're saying for sure. And I think that it's a really, that does come across in the way that you portrayed the character.
Oh, no, I didn't think you were disagreeing. I didn't, no, it's not that. I think it's kind of nuanced.
Yes, for sure.
It's nuanced. And I think it's easy to kind of say, oh, she wanted money and power and the end. And that's just, it's not the way I feel.
No, I mean, it's a very complex portrayal. And I know that, going back to this sort of part that you lived in for such a long time, and the pain that you have spoken so much about. I mean, how did you make sure that you, as a person under Patrizia, were personally or sort of mentally nourished and getting what you needed emotionally while inhabiting a character that did consume you so much? Because I did read that you even disconnected from family in some instances in this, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I always had what was emotionally nourishing for the real me. I would say that what I had was absolute artistic freedom and support all around me, and I had a completely immersive artistic experience. And part of that was the starvation of the big cat that was Patrizia. And my apologies if I sound angry while I'm speaking. When I get passionate, I get very animated.
I'm used to it. It's the Italian.
It's who we are. I get dramatic, but she was this big cat, and this big cat was starving, by the end, starving for love, starving for a place in the world, starving to matter. And, I was starving too.
Yeah.
So I think that to say that I was without my emotional needs in a lot of ways is very true. And also, I was met with so much love by my fellow actors, by my director Ridley Scott, by Giannina Scott. I felt very supported and loved in my way. I have a sort of and I know this about myself and I'm working on it. I have a sort of masochistic approach to acting and to art. And it's something that I struggle with and that I work on. And I don't think it's necessarily the way, it's just my way. And,
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean, and I think it's fascinating to see. It's fascinating to see the depths that you went to for this. And I interviewed a few months ago. I interviewed Janty Yates, and she called Patrizia's post-divorce era her butch era, which I thought was kind of fascinating, because, as a fan of yours, I'm always looking for like clues and references to past work. And I think a lot of other fans now are also drawing comparisons between Patrizia's vibe in those scenes toward the end of the film with the attitude of Joe Calderone. So is there a little bit of Joe that sort of lives at the end of this performance too?
No, I think that Joe, as a reference for fans, is probably most similar because of the hairstyle. Because Joe had that short, dark hair. What inspired me for those scenes and the creation of, it was like a science lab, our trailer, with all of the mood boards of Patrizia, the photographs of scene after scene for hair and makeup. What I was focused on was what happens to your body as a woman when you've been abused and when you're traumatized.
Yeah.
And my experience with that is there's usually a major spike in cortisol in the body, which causes a lot of bloating and a lot of inflammation in the body. And the eyes almost look like they recess a quarter of a millimeter into your head, and are almost constantly glassy and filled with fear. So for me, it was much more about, and the clothing, she's trying to disguise herself so she doesn't dress like herself that whole time. But what I found most important was what does a woman look like when she's been this traumatized? And so that is what I spent my time on. And so no, not Joe Calderone, but yes, we both Joe Calderone and Patrizia Gucci had short black hair.
Yes. I was fooled by a wig.
And maybe it seemed more masculine to some people because she in a way was she did not look like herself. And if you look her up and you look at different photographs of her, she always looked different. But man, did she look different later in her life when things went south with family and with her husband. Her entire demeanor, her entire look, everything changed, and she disappeared into like a bloated shell of herself. And that's where I took her, where I believed she was.
Well, it's amazing because hearing you talk about all of this and seeing how far you've come in your career, I mean, it's just such, I think back to things like, that actress who's in the background of Sopranos. It's like that clip is just, it's so interesting to watch, to see where you started to now having won an Oscar and doing these interviews for this film that is getting Oscar buzz again. I am wondering, what do you remember about filming that day and booking that Sopranos gig, and what do you see in that girl when you look back at that scene and see you at the start of your career compared to where you are now?
When I look back on that scene, I can see exactly what I did wrong in that scene, which I didn't know how to listen, in a scene. And it's, in the scene I was supposed to laugh, and it was sort of like cue, laugh. And I see it and I go, oh, that's not a real laugh when I watch that. and now I think I've grown a lot as an actor, and I studied a lot since I had that role. It wasn't really a role in The Sopranos. I was an extra in one scene. But I think like the nuance and the being specific as an actor and is something that can grow over time if you're willing to listen and really hear the other actor that you're working with, and allow yourself to be surprised by your vulnerability, by your feelings, and to truly be open. Just to even put some significance on what we were just talking about in terms of the way she looks later in the film, as Jonty was saying, her hair even being the way that it was, I thought, well, she certainly wouldn't have had the time to do her hair.
Yeah.
And her lip liner, her makeup, everything's just a little off, because she was on her last leg as a person. And it's all deliberate. So what do I see when I see myself years ago? I see a very non-specific actor, and then now I see myself that as someone that is at least really striving to be specific without thinking about it, and that requires a lot of work ahead of time. And I really thank my acting teacher Susan Batson. She and I worked for months and months on this before we filmed. And also Ridley Scott, just an incredible director who creates a sanctuary for you on set to just fly. Yeah. And the wise words of Al Pacino, the loving nature of Jared Leto, the absolute total commitment of Adam Driver, the elegance and the eloquence of Jeremy Irons, the total absolute openness of Jack Houston, Salma Hayek being one of the most loving people I've ever met on the planet. I couldn't have asked for a better experience.
Well, it's so lovely to see you so committed to this craft and all that you've been able to do as an actress. It's really been something to watch. And I think that's a good note to end on for the film. Although I am also committed to my craft. I've been a little monster since 2008. I wouldn't be doing my job if in the Gaga Daily forums are going to roast me if I don't ask about music. I mean, status of LG7, is it in the works?
Well, there's always music in my heart in the works. And it's just about what will it be? And I'm not ready to answer that yet. But what I will say is there's always music in my heart, and I'm always thinking about music. And it just comes out in different forms. I think this performance was musical, in a way, as Paolo says, it's musical. Browns and pastels, it's music.
It's
I know.
It's music that soars like a pigeon.
Yeah, soars like a pigeon.
Or 1,000 doves, we'll say that.
Oh, thank you. What a sad song, my God.
I love that song. It's brilliant. Chromatica is just such an amazing album. I can't commend you enough for that as well. I know that was also painful for you, but I mean, it's just a brilliant body of work. So thank you for giving that to us. Thank you for giving this film to us. And best of luck to you at the Oscars. I mean, I don't know if that's sacrilegious to say good luck at the Oscars, but I mean, we're pulling for you for sure.
That's very kind. What an honor for you to even say that. Blessings to you and blessings to your family. And thank you for a wonderful interview. And have a great day.
Thank you so much, Gaga. Same to you. Bye-bye.